Reason out. Raciocine e resolva o assunto
Reason it out for yourself.
por você mesmo. Ele havia raciocinado e resolvido as coisas.
He had reasoned things out. Let us reason out our difficulties. Well, let's just reason the problem out. Try to reason out what you did in the past. The detective reasoned out the killer's motive. Now, let's be calm and try to reason this out. He reasoned out the problem by himself. We tried to reason out the answer to the mystery.
Raciocinar e descobrir. Reason out.
The detective tried to reason out how the thief had escaped. You're wasting your time trying to reason his motivations out. The workers have reasoned out that the real power is in their own hands. The mechanics were able to reason out the problem from the little I told them. Rather than worrying about the decision, let's sit down and reason it out.
Trip over. Tropeçar naquele cabo. Alguém vai tropeçar naquele cabo.
Someone will trip over that cable. I'm not always tripping over the wires. I tripped over something and I fell. Peggy has tripped over one of her cats. They are tired of tripping over the PlayStation.
Tropeçar no PlayStation.
Other people may trip over them and be injured. I tripped over perfect strangers on my way to the door. You can barely walk without tripping over a trombonist. I trip over my tongue.
Eu gaguejei. Quando eu gaguejei,
When I tripped over my own tongue, that was what I was thinking. Could he make it to the end without tripping over his tongue?
tropeçar.
Practice often, specifically the words you tend to trip over. I was tripping over my words in my excitement to tell them the news.
Tropeçando nas palavras.
He tripped over his words on the first question posed by the young interviewer. Both he and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, tripped over their words.
Trade-off. Trade-off, equilíbrio.
A trade-off between objectivity and relevance. The decision comes down to a trade-off between features and portability. There is a trade-off between doing the job accurately and doing it quickly. She said that she'd had to make a trade-off between her job and her family.
Equilíbrio.
For some car buyers, lack of space is an acceptable trade-off for a sporty design.
Compensação aceitável por design esportivo. Eu levanto-me cedo e troco sono por exercício.
I get up early and trade off sleep for exercise.
É trocada por energia.
The bandwidth is traded off for energy whenever possible.
Bandwidth. A largura de banda.
They traded off a positive rate of inflation for a lower unemployment rate. You may end up trading job security off for more money. They were willing to trade off some vacation for the freedom to work flexible hours. The government traded off economic advantages for political gains.
Trocou. Trade-off.
I played the game for about a week before trading it off for something more to my liking.
Revezar. Os dois revezaram.
The two traded off every 2 or 3 songs. My roommate and I trade off washing the dishes. The two teams traded off with each other several years for first place in the football league.
Kill over. Kill over. Eu quase desanimei de dar risada.
I almost keeled over in laughter.
Eu quase desmaiei.
Several of them keeled over in the heat.
Vários deles desmaiam no calor.
When she heard the awful news, she keeled over.
Desmaiou.
I keeled over when I heard the bad news. He then keeled over and fell flat on his back. Several soldiers keeled over in the hot sun. The man had a heart attack and keeled over. He just keeled over and died from a heart attack. It was so hot in the room that two people just keeled over.
Desmaiaram.
We should all go inside before somebody keels over from the heat. After running the marathon, Jasper keeled over with exhaustion. He finished the bottle, stood up to leave, and keeled over.
Desmaiou.
He leaned on the flimsy wall and keeled it right over.
E a derrubou num instante. Derrubou.
A high wind keeled over that sorry old fence. The structure had keeled over in the high winds.
Tombou.
The ship keeled over when it hit the iceberg. The boat keeled over in the strong winds.
Tombe.
Too much could cause a ship to keel over in heavy seas.
Tombou.
The ship keeled over in the storm and sank to the bottom of the sea.
Look up to. O admiravam.
They adored him and looked up to him. A lot of the younger girls look up to you.
Admiram você.
Everyone wants someone to look up to.
Admira.
Who else do you look up to? He's a role model for other players to look up to. Of course I look up to you. You're my big sister. I look up to Michael Jackson and Butch Reynolds. He is not a role model that people should be looking up to. I've always looked up to Bill for his courage and determination. You're a popular girl, Grace, and a lot of the younger ones look up to you.
Admiram. Loosen up. Afrouxar o nó.
I can't seem to loosen the knot up. Loose up your grip a little, and your hand won't hurt as much.
Afrouxe. Eles vão afrouxar.
If those shoes are stiff right now, just give them time. They'll loosen up.
Uma massagem vai relaxar suas articulações. Relaxar.
A massage will loosen up your joints.
Me relaxou muito bem.
The exercise loosened me up quite nicely.
Descontrair.
I have to do some exercises to loosen myself up.
Descontrair.
Close your eyes. Relax. Let your body loosen up.
Me faz relaxar.
The trainer loosened me up with a massage before the fight.
Descontraiu.
Thanks. That massage really loosened up my shoulders.
Aquecendo.
He always spent 20 minutes loosening up before going for his morning run.
Relaxar pouco.
You need to loosen up a little.
Relaxar.
They taught me to have fun and loosen up. His welcoming smile helped loosen her up.
Descontraí-la.
I loosened up a little and settled back into the chair. I had loosened up a bit, too, and started chatting a lot more freely. In fact, he seems to have loosened up, as if he has less to prove.
Relaxou.
She was nervous at the beginning of the interview, but loosened up after a while.
Desajeitado e aterrorizado durante sua primeira tentativa de dançar, ela gradualmente começou a relaxar.
Gawky and terrified during her first attempt to dance, she gradually began to loosen up.
Walk up to.
Walk up to the building slowly.
Caminhe até o edifício lentamente. Eu vou ir até o microfone.
I am going to walk up to the microphone. Walk up to her and introduce yourself.
Vá até ela e se apresente. Caminhou até.
Eric walked up to the door and rang the bell. I walked up to the manager and told him my problem. I am going to walk up to Mark and tell him what an idiot he is.
Idiot.
He walked up to me and told me how much he enjoyed my presentation.
Veio até mim.
One of their teachers walked up to me, very concerned. He walked up to a woman sleeping in a doorway. I'm sorry you're still stuck here, I said, walking up to him. Mr. Scorsese received a standing ovation just walking up to the podium.
Plough through. Plough through. Enfrentando. Você perde muito tempo enfrentando a papelada?
Do you waste too much time plowing through paperwork? I've got an enormous pile of papers to plow through.
Plough through. Enfrentar.
You'll never manage to plow through all that food. I had to plow through dozens of legal documents. She plowed through the book to learn everything she could.
Ela encarou com paciência o livro. Eu encarei 2 porções.
I plowed through 2 helpings, but then I didn't have room for any more. If you can plow through the first 3 chapters, then the plot starts to get interesting.
Encararam 16.000 diferentes peças.
Researchers have plowed through 16,000 different pieces of classical, rock, and jazz music.
Nós abrimos caminho pela lama.
We plowed through the mud.
Abriu caminho pelas ondas.
The ship plowed through the waves.
Abriu caminho pelas multidões.
She plowed her way through the waiting crowds.
Abrindo caminho por.
We had been plowing through this mud for almost an hour now.
Abrir caminho.
I managed to plow through the crowds and get to the information desk. The huge truck plowed through the snow-covered streets so traffic could move again.
O avião colidiu com as árvores.
The plane plowed through the trees.
Colidido com a multidão.
The bus had plowed through the crowd at speed.
Colidiu com a barreira.
The car mounted the grass verge and plowed through the safety barrier.
O carro colidiu com 3 jardins.
The car plowed through 3 gardens and flattened a tree.
Run off. Eles correram o mais rápido que podiam.
They ran off as fast as they could. The children rang our doorbell and then ran off. Can't run off now just when I need you. He suddenly remembered something and ran off. Are you boys looking for Mike? He just ran off toward the creek. Their dad ran off when they were little. My dad ran off when I was just a baby. That prison has had 3 inmates run off just this month. He ran off with his wife's best friend. Craddock's wife has run off with another man. Her husband was after running off with another woman.
Fugir.
She has stolen the car and run off with an older man.
Expulse aqueles cachorros.
Go out and run those dogs off the lawn.
Expulsou os invasores.
The security guard ran off the trespassers.
Nos expulsou de sua terra.
The angry farmer ran us off his land.
Expulsava gatos e outros animais.
The dog often ran off cats and other animals.
Gastar a energia deles.
They need to run off their energy.
Gastar energia.
The little boys are very excited. Send them outside to run it off. I'm trying to run off some of the calories in that chocolate cake.
O ladrão roubou fugiu com a minha sacola de livros.
The thief ran off with my book bag.
Fugiu com.
Someone ran off with all the money last week.
Fugido com.
The treasurer had run off with the pension funds.
Foge com a
But
bicicleta.
then it happens. A thief runs off with their bicycle.
Alguém tentou me deslocar para fora da estrada. Me jogar.
Someone tried to run me off the road.
Deslocando-se dos trilhos.
The train took the turn too fast, running off the tracks. The car hit a patch of black ice and ran off the road into a ditch.
Ditch.
I'll run off some more copies.
Eu vou imprimir mais algumas cópias. Eu acho que havíamos imprimido por volta de 100 cópias.
I think we'd run off about 100 copies.
Imprimimos.
We ran off 200 copies of the budget. Please run off some copies of that report.
Improvisar. Run off.
James can just run off a poem for any occasion.
A poem. Poema.
He could run off a 5-page essay in an hour. After years of practice, he could run off a sermon in a couple of hours.
Escorra.
This channel allows rainwater to run off.
Escorrido da garagem.
By noon, all the water had run off the driveway.
A água da chuva escorre do telhado para a calha.
The rainwater runs off the roof into the gutter.
Lock in. E ela trancou o irmão dela no banheiro.
She locked her brother in the bathroom. They locked the jewels in a safe. They threatened to lock him in jail.
Trancafiaram na cadeia.
You can't keep me locked in.
Você não pode me manter preso.
Lock up the killer and throw away the key. They locked the director in his office. She went to her hotel room and locked herself in.
E se trancou.
I'm stuck outside while the kids are locked in the house. This method of cooking locks in the flavor of the meat.
Fechar compradores para seu petróleo.
Venezuela is seeking to lock in buyers for its oil. The pushy sales guy tried to lock me into a contract. We locked in a very low rate on our mortgage.
Negociar. Nós negociamos.
You should try to lock in a high percentage rate on your bonds. Call the cable company and see if you can lock in a lower rate.
Os lutadores estavam engajados em combate.
The wrestlers were locked in combat. The two sides were locked in a heated debate. If those two get locked in on politics, that's all we're going to hear all night long.
O piloto de caça mirou.
The fighter pilot locked in on an enemy target and fired.
Mirei.
Oh, I locked in on that delicious cake the minute I stepped into the party.
A análise focou no cenário.
The review locked in on the crude set design and failed to mention the great acting.
Apply for. Candidate-se para estágio.
Apply for internship. Apply for research opportunities.
Cadastre.
She is applying for public housing. Stanberry applied for a building permit. When's the deadline to apply for financial aid? She had applied for a number of positions. A total of 25 people applied for the job the next morning. Apply to join SWAT. I applied to 4 colleges. Apply to law schools. You would have to apply to join the EU. He applied to become a physical education teacher.
Pump up.
This tire needs pumping up.
Esse precisa ser enchido. Pumping up.
I tried to pump up my back tire.
Encher meu pneu traseiro.
I pumped up the ball just an hour ago.
Enchemos.
We pumped up a new basketball before the game.
Exercitou os músculos.
She pumped up her muscles.
Fazer musculação.
I'm trying to pump up at the gym as well. The football players are always pumping up at the gym. The bodybuilder pumped her muscles up in preparation for the competition.
Vamos aumentar o volume dessas músicas, cara.
Let's pump up those tunes, man. Pump up the volume on that stereo. I can't hear it. The media was pumping it up a fair bit. Come on, pump up the volume.
Aumentar as exportações.
The U.S. was able to pump up exports. She needs to read and pump up her political grip. They have cut prices in an attempt to pump up sales. That pop diva is trying to pump up album sales.
Entusiasmou a todos nós.
The lively debate pumped us all up.
Entusiasmar.
The coach tried to pump up the team so they would win. The coach talked and talked to pump them up. The crowd's chants pumped up the players. The coach's job is to get everyone pumped up for the game. The coach pumped us up for the big game with a rousing speech. The crowd was pumped up by the band's rocking performance. I was pretty nervous before the test, so I took a few minutes to pump myself up before I started.
Rinjão. Tudo depende da decisão dele. Rings on.
Everything hinges on his decision. Everything hinges on his decision.
Tudo depende da decisão dele.
This plan hinges on her approval.
Sentado.
The film's plot hinges on a case of mistaken identity. Your emotions are hinged upon how this guy treats you.
Dependem.
Our vacation plans hinge on how quickly the hurricane gets to the island. The success of the project hinges upon you and how well you do your job. How well the corn crop does all hinges on the weather. The success of this play hinges on 3 weeks of rehearsal. The plan hinges on a deal being struck with a new company. A lot hinges on how we are viewed by overseas investors. Whether or not we reach our fundraising goal hinges upon our volunteers. The prosecution's case hinged on the evidence of a witness who died before the trial. The future of the industry could hinge on the outcome of next month's election.
Depende do.
The outcome of the election hinges on how the candidates perform in the debate.
Be down with. Sim, eu estou de acordo.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I'm totally down with that. That sounds like a good idea. I'm down with that. I need a partner. Are you down with me? I'm down with that crowd. She was totally down for a selfie. You going to the movies? Yo, I'm down.
Estou dentro.
I told them I wasn't down with lying to people.
Ela tem estado mal com gripe há uma semana.
She has been down with the flu for a week. He's been down with a bad cold. I got some bad news this morning, so I'm a bit down at the moment. You didn't do that poorly on the exam. Don't be so down. During the winter months, Sue's always down, but spring cheers her up.
Abaixo o rei.
Down with the king. Down with the government. Demonstrators chanted down with the rebels. Down with the establishment.
Hear from. Não tem notícias de Gil.
It's years since I heard from Jill. We heard from them yesterday. I haven't heard from her lately. I haven't heard anything from her lately. We haven't heard from her for ages. Have you heard from Steve recently? We're still waiting to hear from the bank about our mortgage.
O júri escutou o depoimento.
The jury heard the testimony from the witness. The commission heard from over 30 witnesses. Okay, the board will hear from you now. The police would like to hear from anyone who witnessed the accident. If you don't do your homework, you're going to hear from me.
Houve uma bronca.
If you don't get home on time, you'll be hearing from your father. He'd better apologize to you, or he'll be hearing from me. I'm definitely going to hear from my parents when they see my bad grades.
Houve bronca. Grow out of. Cresceu e não coube mais em suas roupas.
He quickly grew out of his clothes. You've grown out of your shoes again.
Cresceu.
He's already grown out of his school uniform. The baby has already grown out of her infant onesies.
Cresceu e não coube mais em suas macacões infantis.
He grew out of his suit, and he's only worn it 3 times. Chances are great the baby will grow out of it long before it is worn out.
Amadurecer e abandonar seus maus hábitos.
She hoped to grow out of her bad habits.
Grow out.
They thought I would grow out of my fear of spiders. Haven't you grown out of your fear of the dark yet?
Amadureceu e abandonou.
As it happens, lying was a habit my friend grew out of. He wants to be a rapper, but I think he'll grow out of it. Unfortunately, lying is not something that we grow out of.
Outras questões emergiram da revisão de políticas.
Other issues grew out of the policy review.
Emergiu.
This article grew out of a few scribbled notes. The poems grew out of her disturbed imagination. My novel grew out of a short story I'd written as a kid. The new law grew out of people's dissatisfaction with the election results.
Emergiu.
Can you believe their fistfight grew out of a tense exchange in the checkout line?
Você consegue acreditar que a luta corporal deles emergiu de uma tensa discussão na fila do caixa?
Can you believe their fistfight grew out of a tense exchange in the checkout line?
Goof off. Ficando à toa.
Too many students are goofing off.
Goofing off, relaxando.
Sullivan's off to spend some quality time goofing off. You know the 3 of us would just goof off the whole time.
Ficar à toa, vadiar.
The teachers let us goof off in class and do whatever we wanted. When the guy is goofing off, he's fun and charming. They were pretty shocked that they were given the day to goof off.
Vadiar.
I remembered the time that Jonathan and I were goofing off at the mall. He and I used to goof off around the apartments and shoot hoops together. The master is away, and we want to goof off for a while without getting caught. It miffed us that the goof-offs hardly ever got fired.
Ofendia-nos que os vadios dificilmente eram demitidos.
It miffed us that the goof-offs hardly ever got fired. She didn't tolerate goof-offs and encouraged talent, creativity. I know I've been a goof-off in the past, but you really mean a lot to me. Ryan, Meg assessed, was caring, compassionate, and a bit of a goof.
Vadio, goof off. Go under. Passou por debaixo da ponte.
The boat went under the bridge. The dog went under the table. The boats went under us as we stood on the bridge. After you go under the bridge and make a right, you'll see the store up ahead. That box goes under the bed.
Fica sob.
I think it goes under that category.
Ficam guardados debaixo da árvore.
All the Christmas presents go under the tree after the children are asleep. goes under the bed for now. Someday we'll have rooms and rooms for books. This leaky boat is about to go under. The crowd watched as the ship went slowly under. Captain, if this boat takes on any more water, it'll go under.
Afundar.
After capsizing, the ship went under very slowly. The ship leaked so badly that it finally went under.
Afundou.
Is the film industry going under? A lot of businesses go under in the first year.
Go under, vão à falência.
Nothing could be done to keep the bank from going under. Thousands of companies went under during the recession. We feared the business would go under after the founder died.
E à falência. Go under.
Businesses have gone under, and there has also been an impact on jobs. If one firm goes under, it could provoke a cascade of bankruptcies.
Tom ficou inconsciente devido à anestesia.
Tom went under and the operation began. After you go under, you'll wake up in the recovery room. She tried desperately to fight off her drowsiness, but felt herself going under. After a few minutes, she went under and the surgeon began to work. The surgeons gave me a strong anesthetic and I quickly went under.
Fiquei inconsciente. Bargain down. Negociei o preço para 200.
I bargained the price down by $200. The savvy shopper bargained the clerk down. If that offer is too expensive, bargain it down some more.
Barganhei pouco mais.
Mama bargained down the price of apples, carrots, and oranges. If I can't bargain him down to $20, I won't buy the coat. They want $30, but if you try, you can bargain it down to $20. Consequently, service fees get bargained down in contract negotiations. Can you believe I bargained that guy down to $30 for the dresser? Can you believe I bargained the price of that dresser down to $30? He bargained down the price slightly by £400 and then transferred the money. I found one I like, successfully bargained down the price, and went to bed satisfied.
Auction off. Leiloadas.
Obsolete printers were auctioned off.
Leiloados.
Her dresses will be auctioned off for charity. The Army is auctioning off a lot of surplus equipment. We're auctioning off a car at the charity event this year.
Leiloar.
The Duke was forced to auction off his ancestral home to pay his taxes. We don't need this table anymore, so we should auction it off. To clear out the warehouse, the company auctioned off the old inventory. Dick Burdick decided to auction off the cars to help pay for his newest museum.
Hello.
Julian's auctioned off the original red jacket that Jackson wore in his Thriller video.
Burst into. A plateia irrompeu em aplausos efusivos.
The audience burst into wild applause.
Desabando em lágrimas.
Terry keeps bursting into tears for no reason.
Desabou em lágrimas.
When she saw him, she burst into tears.
Começamos a cantar uma canção.
When they brought in the cake, we all burst into song. Sometimes we burst into song while we're hiking in the mountains.
Pegou fogo.
The car crashed into a tree and burst into flames. The grass looked ready to burst into flame. The entire wall seemed to burst into flames.
Pegou fogo.
The rug burst into flames as soon as the candle landed on it. Their helicopter burst into flames after hitting a power line.
Kátia irrompeu onde ela estava sem avisar.
Katja burst in on him without warning. Wasn't it very annoying of him to just burst in?
Irromper?
The side door of the bar flew open, and 3 men burst in.
Irrompeu?
Ted burst into the room and sat down, right in the middle of the meeting. I had to burst in. I didn't have my house key, and no one else was home.
Entrar forçadamente.
In the middle of writing class, the head of the English department burst in with a note. While the gangsters were playing cards, the police burst in and arrested everyone.
Take through. Eu ficaria contente em acompanhar ele.
I would be happy to take him through. Would you mind taking Jerry through the factory? Tour guides will take them through the building. Very cool. Thanks for taking us through the place.
Explicaram em detalhes.
Here's my report. I'll take you through it if you like.
Eu vou explicar em detalhes.
The director took us through the play, scene by scene. I asked him to take me through his daily exercise regimen. I'll take you through it one more time, then you can try it yourself.
Explicar em detalhes.
This helpful guide will take you through the application procedure. I still don't understand the contract. Can you take me through it again?
Explicar em detalhes.
Could you take me through the process and what you found? Pete spent the first morning taking us through the theory of surfing.
Getting on.
I have to get in on this. Great idea.
Ótima. Entrar nisso. Ótima ideia.
We will all want to get in on the scheme.
Entrar.
You sure you don't want to get in on this?
Entrar nisso.
I don't want to get in on this fight. A Japanese company tried to get in on the deal. This sounds like the sort of project he would get in on. It sounds like an interesting project, and I'd like to get in on it. Several local firms also got in on the act by donating prizes. The competition was not all for students. Teachers also got in on the act. If you'd like to get in on this offer, call now. You will have plenty of chances to get in on the film. A gentleman got in on the competition with the ladies.
Trash out. Discutiu o novo orçamento.
The committee thrashed out the new budget. The politician thrashed the issue out with her advisors.
Discutir.
They had a meeting to thrash out their problems. The two sides finally thrashed out a compromise.
Negociou um acordo.
The defense thrashed a deal out with the prosecution. We had to stay an extra 2 hours thrashing this issue out.
Discutindo.
The committee took hours to thrash the whole matter out. Both sides hope to thrash out an agreement by next week. We still have to get together and thrash out the details. We sometimes spend a whole day thrashing it out in a meeting. We'll just have to thrash out our ideas about where to go on vacation. The foreign ministers have thrashed out a suitable compromise formula. John and Anne thrashed out the reasons for their constant disagreements. How foreign fund managers will be compensated has yet to be thrashed out.
Discutir.
With luck, they could sit down later and thrash out what he'd gleaned so far.
Discutiu o que ele havia coletado até então. Fall away. Desprendendo-se das paredes.
Plaster was falling away from the walls.
Plaster, gesso.
The rear sections of the rocket fell away.
Desprendendo-se.
The paint is falling away from the sides of the house.
Desprendido-se.
On the bathroom ceiling, some pieces of plaster had fallen away. Many fell away because they were afraid of reprisals.
Se afastaram.
After the divorce, her friends slowly fell away. I fell away from my parents' political views as I got older. I fell away from the Catholic Church when I was a teenager. The candidate's supporters fell away from her when they heard about the scandal.
Recuaram.
The soldiers fell away from the line of battle.
Recuei.
I fell away from our original plan for the experiment.
Recuei.
I slowly fell away from my work in chemistry and spent more time writing fiction.
A demanda começou a diminuir.
Demand began to fall away. The breeze slowly fell away.
Cessou.
The quality of his work has fallen away a little. His coalition may hold a clear majority, but this could quickly fall away.
Desaparecer. Fell away. Desapareceu.
As the years went by, the public's interest in the murder case fell away.
Fell away. Acabado.
Before we knew it, the summer days had fallen away.
Desaparecem.
When I'm with him, the hours just fall away.
Desapareceram.
As she looked at him, the years fell away, and she saw him again as a young boy.
Inclina-se bruscamente.
On the other side of the hill, the land falls away sharply. The road falls away just past the meadow.
Meadow. Prado. Fica inclinada. A rua fica inclinada.
Be careful, because the street falls away in about a mile.
Tighten up. Aperte seu cinto de segurança. Parece frouxo.
Tighten your seatbelt up. It looks loose. Make sure you regularly tighten everything up on your bike. I tightened up my grip on my purse as I passed through the dark alley.
Ficado mais apertada.
This valve has been tightening up from rust accumulating over the years.
Enrijecendo.
I could see her shoulders tighten up when I suggested having my mother stay with us for a while.
Ficando mais rígidas.
The revenue laws were tightening up.
Enrijecer.
The country has had to tighten up its security controls.
Ficando mais inflexíveis.
There are more rules, and the people who enforce them are tightening up.
ficando mais rígida.
Security has tightened up in airports around the world in response to the attacks. Airline security has tightened up, and now all luggage must be scanned.
Organizar a empresa.
The new CEO has made it his mission to tighten up the company. The author has tightened the story up by deleting irrelevant details. Our department has really tightened up in the last year.
Ficou mais organizado.
The company is tightening up their management.
Se organizou.
Everyone in this team needs to tighten up if we want to have any shot of making it to the playoffs.
Turn in. Eu quero que todos entreguem um relatório. Turn a report in.
I want everybody to turn a report in.
Eu entreguei.
I turned in my exam and left the room. Now we wait for them to turn in their essay. Mitro turned in his resignation to the president. She turned in the lost wallet at the local police station.
Entregou.
I think Mr. Watkins has already turned in his pass and his pager.
Entregou o artigo.
I had to turn the paper in late because of my grandfather's funeral. His own brother turned him in.
Ela entregou-se para a polícia local.
She turned herself in to local police.
Entreguei para a polícia.
I was so racked with guilt over the accident that I turned myself into the police. I decided to turn in my neighbor when I suspected him of the murder.
Ele entregava.
He turned in a consistent performance every day. Bicknell turned in a fine, all-around performance. That actor turns in a consistent performance every show. Jaina and the show's gifted supporting cast have turned in fantastic performances.
Contrai seus dedos assim.
Turn your toes in, like this. My feet turn in slightly, which makes it awkward to dance.
Ele virou os dois monitores.
He turned in the two computer monitors so that he could see both at the same time.
As portas da TV viram.
The edges of the TV turn in to offer the viewer a more immersive viewing experience.
Eu vou parar para gasolina agora.
I'll turn in for gas now. Tight area for semi-truck to turn in for gas.
Pare na próxima.
Turn into the next service station for some gas.
Parou na farmácia.
She walked down the street and turned into the drugstore.
É hora de ir para a cama.
It's time to turn in. Good night. I want to turn in early tonight. I turned in early last night. I have to be up at 6 a.m., so I'll need to turn in early tonight.
Walk through. Andando pelo vale.
All the vampires walking through the valley.
Andar pelas dunas.
Walking through beach dunes is generally prohibited. The viewer is able to walk through the house virtually.
Andar pela cidade.
While walking through the city, we found a small, late 17th century organ. We walk through deserted streets to another potential hostel. Let us walk through certain half-deserted streets.
Bem, nos explique então.
Well, so walk us through it then.
O havia explicado.
She'd already walked him through the creation process.
Eu vou explicar para você.
I'll walk you through everything you need to do.
Nós vamos explicar para você
We'll walk you through the strategy and create a plan with you.
Você pode nos explicar?
Can you walk us through your reasons for wanting the job?
Ela explicou ao James
She walked James through the basics of money management.
fazer uma demonstração.
One of our amazing viewers asked if we could do a walkthrough.
Demonstração.
If someone could do a walkthrough, it would be greatly appreciated. We will schedule a final walkthrough immediately before the closing. This walkthrough is for members of staff using the software for the first time. Let's do one last walkthrough and make sure things are exactly as planned.
Ensaio, walkthrough. Takeaway. Levem-na para longe de mim.
Take her away from me. He's taking my car away.
Ele está levando meu carro.
Someone took my books away.
Levou meus livros.
Can you take away the trash?
Acabou com a graça.
You took away the fun, telling me I was mistaken.
Ele ia tirar todo o entusiasmo.
Telling them this would take away all the excitement of drinking. Some critics might argue FIFA is taking away the joy of scoring a goal.
Retirou a realidade.
Learning and understanding this has never taken away the reality of Christ Jesus for me. I did not take away a good impression.
Ele saiu com o olho roxo daquela luta.
He took away a black eye from that fight.
Eu levei muitas lições.
I took many lessons from that flight.
Que eles levaram uma lição.
That they took a lesson away from that experience.
Aquele filme ganhou 5 Oscars.
That film took away 5 Oscars. Justin Bieber took away several prizes.
Ganhou no final.
It was a tense series of games, but our team took it away in the end.
Tirar seu brinquedo favorito.
If you don't listen, I'll take away your favorite toy.
Tirou seu controle de videogame.
Did your mother take away your video game console?
Tirar a TV por mês.
Charlie, I swear to God, I will take away the TV for a month. My parents took my video games away for getting an F on my last test.
Capturaram a nossa filha.
The kidnappers took our daughter away. The police took away the suspects to the courthouse. The police were threatening to take me away, so I left the country.
Me capturar.
The government has been taking away anyone who challenges its iron-fisted rule.
Venha e leve-me.
Come and take me away.
It's iron-fisted rule, punho de ferro. Eu quero que você me leve.
I want you to take me away. I wish you would take me away with you. Take me away with you, Roberto. Show me the adventure I've always longed for.
Bom poema, cativou-me.
Nice poem. Took me away. The last line took me away, Namrata. The final scene of the movie took me away. Any music with good percussion easily takes me away.
Me cativa. Diminuíam o valor da sala.
Drab curtains took away from the otherwise lovely room. The fact that she is quiet does not take away from her one bit.
Isso não deveria diminuir o valor da conquista dos franceses.
That shouldn't take away from the achievement of the French.
Diminuírem o valor de sua...
Don't let his petty comments take away from your amazing victory tonight.
Ele pediu carneiro madras para levar.
He ordered a lamb madras to take away. Let's take away some Chinese food for lunch. We took away hamburgers and French fries. I really wanted a milkshake and ordered one to take away.
Nós decidimos pegar uma comida para a viagem.
We decided to get a takeaway. We were too tired to cook, so we ordered takeaway. They were walking home with a pizza from a nearby takeaway.
Estabelecimento de comida para a viagem.
He and his friends then went to a takeaway that sold kebabs.
Qual é a lição-chave dessa pesquisa?
What's the key takeaway from this survey?
Lição da reunião.
This was my biggest takeaway from the meeting.
Lições chaves da chamada de hoje.
I also want to emphasize the 3 key takeaways from today's call.
Pontos importantes.
I'll write more detailed notes later, but here are some quick takeaways.
Settle for.
Don't settle for less than what you want.
Não se conforme com menos do que você quer.
Don't settle for less than what you want.
Nos conformamos com o azul.
We wanted a red one, but settled for a blue one.
Eu me conformei com.
I settled for a job editing other people's manuscripts.
Me conformar com.
I had to settle for a lower wage than the one I requested. England will have to settle for 3rd or 4th place.
Conformar-se.
She was just not prepared to settle for anything mediocre. Injuries and illness forced the team to settle for 3rd place. He wants a full refund, and he won't settle for anything less.
Se conformar com 3%.
They asked for a 5% salary increase, but had to settle for 3%. They were hoping to sell their car for £2,000, but settled for £1,500. It was too much money, so we had to settle for something smaller.
It's raining out. It's raining out. Ficou reta.
The road finally straightened out.
Deixaram reto.
I think my arm is broken. I can't straighten it out. The river curves and then straightens out again.
Esticar a perna dela.
She tried to straighten her leg out, crying in pain. Straighten out your body so I can massage your back. Will you straighten out your room, please?
Arrume seu quarto, por favor. Arrume.
This is an awful mess. I hope you'll straighten it out.
Organizar os papéis.
He took time to straighten out the papers on his desk.
Organizar as finanças.
A team of accountants was brought in to straighten out the firm's finances.
O problema não vai se resolver por si só.
The problem will not straighten out on its own. I need more time to straighten out my problems.
Resolver.
We need to straighten out this disagreement before we go any further.
Tentou endireitar o estudante problemático.
Tried to straighten out the problem student. You either straighten out or you find someplace else to live. He straightened out after joining the army.
Endireitar-se.
Her parents sent her to boarding school to straighten her out.
Endireitar.
He spent years trying to straighten out his drug addict brother. Eu queria parar, mas ela me encorajou. I wanted to quit, but she urged me on.
Encorajou-a.
The look in Will's eyes urged her on.
O encorajando.
He could hear her voice urging him on.
O encorajava.
James' father urged him on from the side of the court. She had a strong and supportive sister who urged her on. He sat in front, nodding encouragement and urging the boy on. crowd was cheering and urging her on all through the race. His parents urge him on to greater and greater accomplishments.
Encorajando você.
I am not rushing you, merely urging you on towards a speedy decision.
Não encorajando.
What I remember most was the thrill of the crowd urging me on. Visitors remember a lean, cheerful figure on horseback urging on his men. Rosalind Gallagher was there, urging me on, and I got great courage from that.
Entrar sem avisar.
I wish he'd knock instead of just barging in.
Ela entrou sem avisar.
She barged in on me when I was in the bathroom.
Entrar sem avisar.
Suddenly, 2 men barged into the room. The kids just barge in without knocking.
Interrompeu no meio de uma reunião.
He just barged in on us in the middle of a meeting.
Interromper assim.
Sorry to barge in like this, but I need your advice.
Interrompeu.
He just barged in on us while we were having a private conversation. I was getting angry because she kept barging in on our conversation.
Interromper.
Sorry to barge in, but I couldn't help overhearing what you were saying.
Ela simplesmente esbarrou em mim e quase me derrubou.
She just barged into me and nearly knocked me over.
Esbarrou no refrigerador.
Tom tripped, barged into the water cooler, and hurt his knee.
Esbarrou na estante.
She cut her forehead when she barged into the bookcase. I rounded the corner and nearly barged into Tara.
Algum idiota esbarrou em mim e me conquistou.
Some idiot barged into me and knocked me off my feet.
It away. Vento erodindo as dunas.
Wind eating away the dunes.
O ácido corrói o acabamento.
The acid ate the finish away. Rot is eating away the interior of the house. The recession is eating away at their revenues.
Corroendo.
Woodworm had eaten away at the doorframe. Within a few years, inflation had eaten away all the economic gains.
It away.
Don't use that harsh cleaner. It will eat away at a soft metal like this.
Destrói gradualmente sua crença.
That sort of thing eats away at your belief. His constant criticism ate away at her self-confidence. It's like a cancer eating away at your beliefs. Christianity and modernism have gradually been eating away at some of these beliefs. The fact that he failed the test is eating away at him. The thought of her child left helpless and alone ate away at her.
Consumir você.
You can't let a big loss eat away at you, the coach said.
Preocupar Tiffany.
I'm worried that your critical comments have begun to eat away at Tiffany.
Sim, está cozinhando. Comam.
Yay, it's cooked. Eat away. So eat away before those birds do. Eat away, children. You're welcome to all you want. If eating broccoli makes you happier than eating cake, then by all means, eat away. I could barely sleep, and my nerves ate at me continuously. The guilt ate at me day and night.
A culpa me consumia dia e noite.
It truly eats at you after a while. You hide it in your heart, but it eats at you day and night.
Sponge off. Ele viveu às custas de seus pais.
He sponged off his parents for years.
Vivido às custas.
He's always sponged off our parents.
Obter comida e dinheiro.
Please stop sponging food and money off your relatives.
Vivia às custas de amigos.
Instead of buying things for himself, he sponged off friends. My roommate's nice, but she's always sponging food off of me.
Vivendo às custas da generosidade deles.
I did not feel comfortable sponging off of their generosity.
Ela está sempre limpando o balcão da cozinha.
She's always sponging off the kitchen counter.
Limpe a mancha imediatamente.
Sponge the stain promptly with cold water.
Limpei a superfície da mesa.
After dinner, I cleared all the dishes and sponged off the table.
Limpar a superfície dele.
The blackboard was very dirty, so the teacher told me to sponge it off. I'll go and sponge this orange juice off my dress. They spent all day sponging blood and ink from the floor.
Go forth. O discurso dele suscitou uma resposta zangada.
His speech called forth an angry response. Few things call forth more compassion. It called forth great courage.
A batalha suscitou coragem extraordinária dos soldados.
The battle called extraordinary courage forth from the soldiers.
A canção de amor suscitou memórias tristes.
The love song called forth sad memories. Beautiful artwork is known to call very strong emotions forth.
A suscitou.
I held back my tears through most of the story, but the tragic ending called them forth.
Ela convocou toda a sua coragem.
She called forth all her courage. The principal called Wally forth. Please call forth Wally again. Counselor, you may call forth your first witness.
Chamar. Go forth.
Do not step forward until they call you forth. The judge called me forth and asked me to tell what happened at the crime scene.
Chamou.
The coach called forth the winners and presented them with a trophy.
Run along. Saiam agora, crianças.
Run along now, children.
Por favor, vá embora e deixe-me sozinho.
Please run along and leave me alone.
Eu tenho que ir embora agora. Adeus.
I have to run along now. Goodbye. I'll be running along now. I'm already late.
Vá embora.
Run along now and play for a bit.
Por que você não sai e brinca lá fora agora?
Why don't you run along and play outside now? I'd love to stay longer, but I must be running along.
Nós vamos embora brevemente.
We'll be running along shortly, so no need to set a place for us for dinner.
Vá embora, Dave.
Run along, Dave. This is all a bit above your pay grade. Well, I must be running along now, or I'll be late for supper.
Sweat out. Ele passou apreensivo por aquele último exame final.
He sweated out that last final exam. Karen sweated out the long wait peacefully.
Suportar.
You'll just have to sweat it out. There's no way to hurry it up.
Esperando apreensivo.
I I don't know if I made the team. I'm still sweating it out.
Suportar mais ano.
I can sweat out one more year of this job before I totally flip out. I sweated out the police's interrogation without saying a word. She sweated the 2-hour wait out until she heard the results of her bar exams.
Suar para ajudar a passar.
I took a steamy shower, trying to sweat out my cold. I just sweated all the water out that I drank today. They are in the sauna trying to sweat out the booze. I have a bit of a cold, and I am going to try to sweat it out. I'm trying to sweat the alcohol from last night out by going for a run this morning.
Eliminar pelo suor as toxinas.
You should spend some time in the sauna. It's a great way to sweat out toxins.
Lay up. Ele ainda está acamado, com problema nas costas.
He's still laid up with a bad back.
Acamado.
I was laid up with the flu for a week. I was laid up for 2 weeks after my accident.
Deixou acamado.
A broken leg laid me up for 2 months. Flu laid up everyone at work for a week or more.
Me deixou de cama.
Man, that cold laid me up for a week. All I did was sleep. My car is laid up for repairs. The accident laid up the ship for repairs.
Imobilizou. Imobilizou ônibus.
A wreck laid the bus up for months.
Imobilizar seu navio por dias.
A collision will lay your ship up for days, if not longer.
Parar aquele navio.
You need to lay that boat up and fix the sail.
Estocar o máximo que você conseguir.
Try to lay as much of it up as you can.
Estocar.
I am trying to lay up some firewood for the winter.
Estocar.
I better lay up a supply of paper towels now.
Estocar muitos suprimentos.
We must lay up many supplies for our long journey.
Estocamos metade para plantar no ano seguinte.
We bought a bushel of seed and laid half of it up for planting next year.
Ring out. Grito de aviso ressoou.
A cry of warning rang out.
Ressoaram.
His brave words rang out.
Ressoou pelos céus.
A cry rang out throughout the skies.
A risada do Bob ressoou.
Rob's laughter rang out in the large room.
Aplausos ressoaram.
Cheers rang out as the winner was announced. The monk pulled on the rope and the bells rang out. The bells rang out at the end of the wedding ceremony. Loud cheers rang out at the end of the game. A shot rang out and started all the dogs barking.
Ressoando na distância.
I could hear the cheers ringing out in the distance. We rang out the old year with a champagne toast.
Nós celebramos o fim do ano velho com brinde de champanhe.
We rang out the old year with a champagne toast. Light is reborn as we ring out the old year and ring in the new.
Celebramos o começo do ano novo.
When we ring in the new year, you'll get access to a premium bar. Join us as we ring in the new year with a complimentary midnight champagne toast. We ring out the year with 12 strikes of the clock at midnight, eating a grape per strike.
Bog down. A lama atolou o carro.
The mud bogged down the car. The car bogged down in the mud. The muddy ground bogged down the panzers.
Atolou. Atolada na lama.
When the motorcycle got bogged down in the mud, Abu helped him push it to firmer ground.
Não fiquemos emaranhados em reclamações individuais.
Let's not get bogged down with individual complaints.
Emaranhado em detalhes.
It's easy to get bogged down in details. The story bogs down after the second chapter.
Não emaranhe.
Don't bog down your brother with more suggestions.
Emaranhados com regulações e licenças.
We've gotten bogged down with regulations and permits.
Tente não ficar emaranhado nos detalhes.
Try not to get bogged down in the details of this project. The process bogged down and almost stopped. The students became bogged down with the algebra problems. The Smiths really got bogged down in decorating their house.
Emaranhou-se.
Their research bogged down because they lacked the laboratory expertise.
Word up. Escuta, meu irmão. Word up.
Word up, my brother. You got me high as a kite.
Você me deixou muito chapado.
Word up, my brother. You got me high as a kite.
Escuta, rapaziada. Vai acontecer hoje.
Word up, boys. It's going down tonight.
Atenção, eu tenho um novo vídeo para vocês hoje.
Word up. I have a new video for you today.
Fala aí, irmão.
Word up, bro.
Fala, garotos e garotas.
Word up, guys and gals.
Ei, fala aí, cara.
Hey, word up, man.
Word up, falou disse.
Donkey Kong is the best video game ever made. Word up.
Falou disse.
I love this tune. Word up, sister. Gee, George, your lawn looks very nice today. Word up. I love a cloudy summer day. Word up.
Sério mesmo? Cara, pode contar comigo. Sério mesmo.
Dude, count me in. Word up.
Eu vou estar lá. Sério mesmo.
I will be there. Word up.
Pre-on. Os lobos caçam animais pequenos.
The wolves prey on small animals.
Prey-on. Corujas caçam ratos.
Owls prey on mice. Many birds prey on snakes.
Caça insetos.
You can tell that this bird preys upon insects. Lions prey on huge herds of wildebeest and zebra.
Caça todos os roedores.
Their cat preys on all the rodents in the neighborhood. Mountain lions have been coming down into town to prey on people's pets.
Criminosos se aproveitam de solitárias presas idosas.
Criminals who prey on lonely, elderly people. These telemarketers prey on the elderly and call them 5 or 10 times a day.
Aproveitando as mulheres sozinhas.
He would attack at night, preying on lone women in their 20s or 30s. It's particularly contemptible that these sort of people prey on the elderly. There are many thieves and con artists in the city who prey on unsuspecting tourists. These megacorporations are all too willing to prey upon consumers.
Right out. Nós pegamos o ônibus e fomos até o shopping. Roll out.
We got the bus and rode out to the mall.
Ele saiu do acampamento em um pequeno burro.
He rode out of the camp on a tiny little donkey that could barely stay upright. All the racers rode out of the starting area and began the bicycle marathon. At the sound of the starting gun, all the contestants rode out. The doctor rode out to the ranch to check on his patient. The cowboy rode out of town on a large black horse. The ship rode out the storm.
O barco resistiu à tempestade. Resistir.
We managed to ride out the stock market downturn.
Resistir à tempestade.
The ship rode out the storm without any permanent damage.
Resistir a esta reação.
We hope to ride out this recession better than last time.
Ele tem que apenas enfrentar isto.
He has to just ride this out and hope that it turns in his favor.
Conseguimos enfrentar.
Times were hard during the Depression, but we managed to ride it out.
Resistem à tempestade.
They rode out the storm.
Enfrentar outra tempestade.
Some of the children have fears about riding out another storm. The government seems confident that it will ride out the storm. The ruling party think they can ride out the political storm.
Bang up. Amassou a porta do lado do passageiro do meu carro.
That accident banged up the passenger side door of my car.
Não danifica a tela.
Be careful with my phone. Don't bang the screen up.
Não amasse.
Don't bang my best skillet up.
Quem amassou?
Who banged up my best skillet? The truck banged up my car in the accident. Banging up the car a second time will make Dad very unhappy.
Eu me machuquei.
I banged myself up when I fell down the stairs.
Eu me machuquei.
I got really banged up in that car accident.
Machucaram pouco.
The crooks banged him up a little bit.
Machucou.
The crash banged up the passengers in the car.
Machucou seriamente.
She banged herself up badly.
Machucada.
Mother fell down the stairs and was all banged up.
Preso por ano.
I thought I would be banged up for a year.
A polícia prendeu para a noite.
He was so drunk that the police banged him up for the night. David Flynn plays a young Dubliner banged up for possession of drugs.
Planout. Panout. Penout. Não estava dando certo.
The signs revealed that the experiment wasn't panning out.
Não deu certo.
The eagerly anticipated kayaking trip never panned out.
Não deu muito certo.
The investment scheme didn't quite pan out. None of Morgan's proposed financings panned out. I hope this decision pans out for him.
Deu resultado para ele.
If I don't pan out as a musician, I can always go back to school.
Não deu certo.
I'm glad to see that your business plan has panned out.
Meus planos desenrolaram-se mal.
My plans panned out poorly.
Tudo vai correr bem.
Don't worry, everything will pan out okay.
Correram como gostaria.
Not all his ideas have panned out as he would have liked.
Will, aquilo não correu bem para você.
Will, that didn't pan out well for you.
Go through. Ninguém podia passar por aquela rua.
Nobody could go through that street.
Passar por este corredor.
Once you go through this corridor, turn right. To enter the courtyard, one had to go through the building.
Passar pelo estacionamento.
There is also another gate once you go through the parking lot.
Passando por pré.
The country is going through a period of economic instability.
Eles estão vivenciando.
We can't really imagine what they're going through.
Vivenciar.
I apologize for what you had to go through.
Passar pelaquela provação.
I don't know how he goes through that ordeal every day.
Revermos a demonstração inteira.
Why don't we go through the whole demonstration once more?
Reviram o segundo ato.
They went through the second act a number of times.
Rever a peça inteira.
We need to go through the whole play a few more times.
Rever nossas falas.
We need to go through our lines before we take the stage.
A espada atravessou o cavaleiro.
The sword went through the knight cleanly and quickly.
O prego atravessou todas as 3 tábuas.
The nail went through all 3 boards.
Atravessou a pele.
If that rusty nail went through the skin, we better get you to the hospital.
Atravessou a parede.
The bullet went through the wall and hit the sleeping man in the leg.
Vasculhar o pacote de cartas.
She started to go through the bundle of letters.
Vasculhando todas as gavetas.
Someone had broken into the office and gone through all the drawers.
Examinou todo o livro jurídico.
Collins went through every legal book she could find.
Vasculhou sua bolsa.
Lily went through her purse in search of the keys to her apartment.
A venda do prédio está programada para acontecer.
The sale of the building is set to go through.
Ser aprovadas?
Do you think the changes to the budget bill will go through?
O contrato vai ser aprovado sem mais atraso.
The contract will go through without further delay.
Vão ser aprovados.
There is every chance that these proposals will go through.
Nós gastamos nossos suprimentos.
We went through our supplies in a day.
Gastando.
Tara was amazed by the amount of money she was going through.
Gastando dinheiro.
Politicians who go through their money like there's no tomorrow.
Gastado todo o seu dinheiro.
He'd gone through all his money by the end of the first week of his vacation.
Passou por 31 edições.
Within 2 years, it went through 31 editions.
Aquele livro passou por 3 impressões só neste ano.
That book has gone through 3 printings this year alone. The book quickly went through 5 editions. It went through several editions and remained in use for well over a century.
Move over. Ele tinha pensado sobre a ideia de fazer filme.
He had been mulling over the idea of making a movie.
Pensar sobre isso.
I'll leave you alone so you can mull it over.
Analisar suas ideias.
Conversations with friends, too, can help you mull over your ideas.
Pensando sobre uma ideia.
In fact, I find long-distance running helps when mulling over an idea.
Analisar as diversas.
She began to mull over the various possibilities.
Pensar sobre.
I was mulling over the fact that Natalie needs braces and my dental insurance sucks.
Analisando.
I held this thought for about 5 minutes, mulling it over, before realizing how ridiculous it was.
Pensar sobre.
If convicted, they'll have plenty of time to mull over their sins.
Só para analisar.
I'm going to have to think about it for a while, just to mull it over.
Analisando.
The state government is mulling over hiking the fees for medical courses in government medical colleges.
Be in for. Ele está prestes a ter choque.
She's in for a shock.
Prestes. Estavam prestes a ter uma surpresa.
However, the two of them were in for quite a startling surprise.
O que me aguardava.
I shuddered inwardly, knowing what I was in for.
Vai ter choque.
Large numbers of you will be in for a shock when your February bill arrives.
Está prestes a ter uma surpresa.
He might be in for an unpleasant surprise.
Me aguardava.
I certainly didn't know what I was in for.
Nós vamos ter chuva.
The weather forecast says we're in for heavy rain this evening.
Estamos encrencados.
We knew we were in for it, and we had to be ready. Denise was in for it now. Carol would spread those rumors again. By the time Artie got off the call, Gloria knew she was in for it.
Encrencada.
I knew I was in for it the moment I saw the look on his face. Work it out before Adrian finds out, or you'll both be in for it.
Hop on, hop off. Eu corri em direção ao teleférico e hopped on, montei.
I ran to the cable car and hopped on.
Monte na bicicleta.
Hop on the bike and take a trip.
Montar agora.
You better hop on now before you miss the show.
Monte na bicicleta.
Now put on a helmet, hop on the bike, and see the beauty of nature.
Monte.
Hop on now or forever be left behind.
Monte agora.
Hop on now or you'll lose your only train to dinner.
Montar no teleférico.
Sometimes you have to hop onto the cable car after it has started to move.
Ouça, eu preciso demonstrar agora mesmo.
Listen, I need to hop off right now.
Desmontar. Eu desmonto da minha motocicleta e vejo a placa.
I hop off my motorcycle and see the sign.
Ela desmontou da motocicleta.
She hopped off the motorcycle as soon as she could. I'm tempted to hop off right now and push you up against a tree. I hop off my motorcycle and take off my helmet. She hopped off the motorcycle and instantly began walking towards the building.
Get into. Ela tem começado a interessar por yoga recentemente.
She's been getting into yoga recently. She does 3 classes a week. I'm really getting into jazz these days.
Get into. Comecei a se interessar.
I got into language learning seriously in 2015. Well, a few months ago, I got into acoustic guitar.
Não se deixe entrar em hábitos ruins.
Don't let yourself get into bad habits.
Entrou nas drogas.
How did she get into drugs?
Comecei a caminhar.
I even got into walking every day.
Entram para as drogas.
Many get into drugs in college.
Não consigo entrar nesses sapatos.
I can't get into these shoes. They're too small. You don't need to go on a drastic diet to get into that dress. It would be good to lose a few kilos, get into my old clothes again. I can't get into the skirt. How could you think I would fit into this?
Entrar para o jornalismo?
What's the best way to get into journalism? How do I get into law? I got into advertising because it was my plan B.
Entrei para a publicidade.
How I got into advertising and what happened next. Are you sure you know what you're getting into?
Que você está entrando? Você sabe que você... Eu entrei numa conversa com um estudante italiano.
I got into conversation with an Italian student. He got into the plane and found the emergency kit.
Entrar no teatro mais cedo e aquecer.
Actors need to get into the theater early and warm up.
Envolveu-se em...
He got into trouble with the police while he was still at school.
Envolveu-se em dificuldades.
3 people were rescued from a yacht which got into difficulties. 2 days ago, I got into a horrible car wreck and I lost my car. Little Jasper got into a bad situation and made a mistake.
Stand up. Eu tenho ficado de pé o dia inteiro.
I've been standing up all day and I'm really tired.
Levantou-se para fazer uma pergunta.
A man at the back stood up to ask a question. You have the chair. I don't mind eating standing up.
Fique em pé.
Stand up straight and take your hands out of your pockets.
Se erguerem.
It's time for people who care about freedom to stand up and be counted. It's become conventional wisdom that it's essential to stand up for yourself.
Erguer-se em defesa.
Clerk was right to stand up for her beliefs about marriage. Every one of them found people who were willing to stand up for the cause.
Ela deu o bolo em você?
Did she stand you up?
E
We were to have had dinner together yesterday evening, but he stood me up. He was in a foul mood because he had been stood up. The next time, she stood me up again.
sustenta na corte.
The evidence is weak and will not stand up in court. Good research will stand up under any criticism.
Sustentar-se.
He made wild accusations that did not stand up. How well does this thesis stand up to close examination?
Resistir bem.
This fabric will stand up well, even if it gets lots of wear.
Resistir a uma tempestade.
I wasn't sure how well the house would stand up in a storm.
Resistir a muito mais tempestades.
This house won't stand up to many more rainstorms.
Resistir a ventos fortes.
The glass in this building won't stand up to high winds.
Take for. Assumir que ela fosse sua irmã.
She looks so young, I took her for your sister.
Você assume que eu sou um completo idiota?
Do you take me for a complete idiot? The fake coins were taken for genuine.
Sumidas.
Who do you take me for? So they all took him for a fool. She had known Hester Morgan several years and took her for an honest person.
Assumia que ela era uma pessoa honesta. Levou-a para uma volta na...
Took her for a spin out the Kinnegad Road. We took it for a spin around the parking lot, and it seemed easy to drive.
E o levou por uma volta.
A misguided young sea eagle snatched up the device and took it for a ride. So they did the obvious. They built a replica of the ship, and they took it for a ride.
Call for. Calling for, pedindo a demissão dele.
Several of the newspapers were calling for his resignation. Protesters were calling for a ban on the production of GM foods. Members have called for his resignation. They angrily called for Robinson's resignation.
Pedindo ajuda.
Do you hear someone calling for help?
Requer a liberação.
The ceasefire resolution calls for the release of all prisoners of war.
O comentário era necessário.
I really don't think that remark was called for.
São necessários.
Skill and initiative are called for in this job.
Isto requer uma celebração.
This calls for a celebration.
Requer champanhe.
This happy news calls for champagne. It's the sort of work that calls for a high level of concentration.
E o editor me chamou.
I was not surprised when the editor called for me. I called for Ted, but he didn't hear me. I stood on the porch and called for the dog. The audience called for the playwright. The judge called for the verdict.
Disse que iria pegar a Mary às 8.
John said he'd call for Mary at 8.
Pegar vocês às 4.
Your flight is at 6 a.m., so the driver will call for you at 4.
Eu vou pegar você por volta das 8.
I will call for you about 8 this evening.
Para pegar o pacote.
Someone's at the door calling for the package. The driver will call for you at 7 o'clock.
Anunciando chuva esta tarde.
Take an umbrella with you. The forecast is calling for rain this afternoon.
A previsão anuncia céu parcialmente nublado.
For this afternoon, the forecast calls for partly cloudy skies.
Anuncia nuvens de chuva.
The weather forecast calls for clouds and rain. The forecast calls for snow flurries tonight.
$35. Flip out. Eu quase surtei quando eu ouvi a respeito.
Wow, I almost flipped out when I heard about it.
Eu surtei quando vi como eles haviam mudado meu trabalho.
I flipped out when I saw how they had changed my work. She's going to flip out when she sees the great present I got her.
Fiquei muito entusiasmado.
When the broker showed me the spacious new apartment, I flipped out. The customer flipped out over the luxurious black convertible. The neighbors flipped out when my oak tree crashed onto their property. I nearly flipped out when she told me she and David were getting married. After a sleepless night, Wally simply flipped out.
Surtou.
I felt like I was going to flip out from the steady dripping of the faucet. I think I flipped out a bit after college because I had no direction in my life.
Surtou.
After the divorce, Pete flipped out and started getting into some weird stuff. Mom will flip out when she finds out we broke her vase. When Jenny saw that we'd rented a pony for her birthday party, she totally flipped out.
Cut back. Eu acho que podar esta parte do arbusto.
I think that cutting back this part of the bush will bring more light into the house.
Podar estes arbustos.
Let's cut these bushes back. They're getting in the way. Don't cut back my roses. It's time we cut back these bushes.
É hora de economizarmos pouco.
It's time we cut back a little.
Reduzir.
We have to cut back production.
Reduzir o investimento.
Plans to cut back investment in education.
Reduzir o gasto.
They are going to cut back defense spending.
Reduzir a quantia.
We're trying to cut back on the amount we spend for food.
Reduzir o uso de água.
You are all going to have to cut back on water usage.
Reduzir despesas.
You simply must cut back on office expenses. The government has announced plans to cut back on defense spending.
Cut back. Pet fuma, mas ele está tentando evitar.
Pete smokes, but he's trying to cut back.
Evitar.
If exercise is causing you pain, you should cut back. If you cut back on fat and sugar, you'll lose weight. My doctor told me that I need to cut back on eating fried foods in order to improve my cholesterol.
Snap out of. Eu não conseguia sair dessa.
I was depressed and I couldn't snap out of it. It took him a long time to snap out of his grief. You should snap yourself out of toxic thoughts.
Sair dessa.
He's depressed You can't just tell him to snap out of it. I was very depressed for a week, but this morning I snapped out of it.
Saí dela rapidamente.
It isn't often that a cold gets me down. Usually I can snap out of it quickly. I hope he snaps out of it soon, because we'll need him to present our project.
Me fez sair dele.
I was in a state of shock after the crash, but hearing my daughter's cries snapped me out of it.
Fazê-la libertar-se de sua depressão.
I don't know how to get her to snap out of her depression. The sound of a door slamming snapped me out of my daydream.
Devaneio.
Come on, snap out of it. You can't let your breakup get you so depressed.
Jeff removeu com estalo o plugue de plástico do soquete.
Jeff snapped the plastic plug out of the socket.
Ele removeu com estalo o plugue.
He snapped out the plug.
Agora só remova o celular da capa.
Now just snap the phone out of the case. Just snap it out of the socket, and you're good to go.
Clue. Informe-nos. Clue-os.
Clue us in on how these forms are to be filled out.
Informe-me.
Why is everyone mad at Bruce this morning? Clue me in.
Alguém precisa informá-la.
Someone needs to clue her in before she keeps spreading these lies.
Por favor, me informe.
Please clue me in on what's been going on.
Informe aqueles caras.
Clue in those guys before it's too late. My friend clued me in on the local club scene.
Nos informou sobre o que está acontecendo.
It's time someone clued us in on what's happening. Stella had clued her in about Peter. Let me clue you in on something. We're not idiots.
Ela foi informada.
Has she been clued in about the rules of this office? I hoped my friend who worked for a senator would clue me in on what the government was planning to do.
Stand for. As letras significam sala de emergência.
The letters ER stand for emergency room.
GMT significa.
GMT stands for Greenwich Mean Time. She explained that DIN stands for Do It Now. What does EU stand for? I hate them and everything they stand for.
Apoiam.
This party stands for low taxes and individual freedom.
Apoia.
I'm not sure what the Republican candidate stands for.
Apoia a democracia.
The party is trying to give the impression that it alone stands for democracy.
Eu não vou permitir.
No one makes a fool of me. I won't stand for it.
Eu não permitiria esse tipo de comportamento.
I wouldn't stand for that sort of behavior from him if I were you. I'm not going to stand for that sort of behavior in my class.
Eu não vou permitir.
He can't speak to me like that. I'm not going to stand for it.
Wise up. Eu abri os olhos para os jogos dele, no entanto.
I wised up to his games, though.
Abri os olhos.
The public needs to wise up about Medicare spending.
Abri os olhos.
They finally wised up to the fact that they were being cheated.
Abri os olhos.
It's time that Congress wised up to the fact that most citizens do not trust politicians. Those who think this is a harmless recreational drug should wise up. It's time to wise up and tell those around you that enough is enough. People are starting to wise up to the corruption of the court system. They could lose everything they have if they don't wise up. She seems to have wised up enough to end the affair. Hopefully, the government will wise up before it's too late. After staying with my old job for too long, I wised up and found a job I really enjoyed. If you think you know something about cars, read this book. It will wise you up.
Close up. Eles se aconchegaram um no outro.
They cozied up to each other. He cozied up to the heater. The puppies cozied up to their mother. My sister and her boyfriend started cozying up to each other. In the morning, we found all the children cozied up together in the same bed.
Aconchegar.
I know you're bothered because I cozied up to her at the resort.
Se aproximando mais do chefe.
He's always cozying up to the boss. The salesman tried to cozy up to the customer. That new woman is always cozying up to one or another club member.
Aproximar mais.
He began cozying up to the boss as soon as he was hired. Crystal has been cozying up to me by buying me coffee all week.
Duel upão. Ele tende a pensar muito nos aspectos negativos.
He tends to dwell on the negative aspects of his performance.
Nos detenhamos no passado.
Let's not dwell on the past, she said.
Estude, reflita sobre lições passadas.
Study, dwell upon past lessons. It's no good dwelling on your misfortunes.
Que não nos detentamos nesse tópico.
Let's not dwell on this topic too long. We have a lot to cover today.
Que me preocupar com o passado.
I've got better things to do than dwell on the past.
De refletir sobre conquistas passadas.
Maurice and his co-workers rarely had time to dwell upon past achievements.
Se debruçou sobre o assunto excessivamente.
The Law Commission, too, dwelt on the subject extensively.
Tente não ficar cismada com essa rejeição, querida.
Try not to dwell on this rejection, honey.
Ela deixou seus olhos pousarem sobre eles por um momento.
She let her eyes dwell on them for a moment. He dwelt with fastidious detail on her figure. His eyes dwelled on her face for a moment. Her eyes dwelled on the beautiful sunrise. This is the largest turtle that dwells upon the earth.
Muitas criaturas vivem nessa terra.
Many creatures dwell on this earth. Humanity dwells upon Earth's surface. The salo-sucker is a scavenger fish that dwells on the ocean floor.
Sell out. Havia esgotado.
I went to get some bread, but the shop had sold out. The next day, the bookshop sold out. Have they sold their supply out yet? I've been trying to find the toy Janet wants for Christmas, but every store is sold out.
Esgotada.
The tickets had sold out within a few short hours. Football games often sell out well in advance.
Esgotam.
Sleeping bags sold out almost immediately. Tickets for the show sold out in 70 minutes. The first issue of the magazine sold out within 2 days. On a hot day, we can sell out of ice cream in an hour.
Esgotar o suprimento de sorvete.
Hardware stores have sold out of water pumps. We are probably sold out of season tickets.
Entregou os outros para a
Jacob
polícia.
sold the others out to the police so that he would avoid jail time.
Let entregou seus amigos.
Lefty sold out his friends and will all soon be arrested.
Se você me entregar.
You'll be sorry if you sell me out. Algus's grandfather sold his friends out to the enemy to save himself.
Se vendido para a música pop dominante.
Some fans thought she'd sold out to mainstream pop music.
Se vendeu quando ele assinou.
Many of his fans felt he sold out when he signed on to a major record label.
Não vai se vender.
The young see him as a politician who will not sell out or make compromises.
Se vendeu para uma grande corporação.
The farmer finally gave up and sold out to a large corporation. I refuse to sell out no matter what they offer me.
Root for. Eles sempre torcem para o time da casa.
They always root for the home team.
Nós todos torcemos pelo time de futebol.
We all rooted for our school's football team. I'm sure you'll win. Everyone's rooting for you.
Torcendo por ele.
The whole group will be rooting for him.
Torcendo por ele.
Good luck on your upcoming show. Remember that we're all rooting for you. The whole of this club is rooting for him. I've always rooted for the company to succeed.
Torcer por ele.
As the crowd applauds, you can't help rooting for him too. So rooting for a team becomes a display of patriotism. The room exploded with shouts and cheers as people rooted for their favorite. The crowds have been large, with the vast majority of the fans rooting for Mexico. His whole hometown was rooting for him as he made his professional boxing debut on live television.
Ease into. Para ele se acostumar ao seu novo papel.
It will take a little time for him to ease himself into his new role.
Ela aos poucos se acostumou novamente com o trabalho.
After the baby, she eased herself back into work. She looked kind of disgusted and then, eased me back into a chair.
John acomodou-se em sua grande cadeira.
John eased himself into his great chair. He eased his hand into his trouser pocket.
Acostumar-se gradualmente ao trabalho.
Chuck helped me ease into the job.
Acostumar aos poucos.
When you start something new, you have to ease into it. The following advice can help you ease into the process. I was really stressed about beginning a job I was so unfamiliar with, but my boss let me ease into it, and I have a good handle on things now. Your grandfather has lived in the same home for over 60 years, so we have to be sure he's eased into living with us.
Flip through. Ela folheou a revista enquanto ela esperava.
She flipped through the magazine while she waited.
Folheou o livro.
She flipped through the book, looking at the pictures. Don't just flip through it, read it. I was flipping through the magazine when I spotted an article on comets. She flipped through the magazine, looking for the letters page.
Passando pelos canais.
Flipping through the channels, I came across an old war movie. I'm a TV junkie. I'm always flipping through channels. I was flipping through the TV channels to find something interesting. A quick flip through my cookery books. A quick flip through this book should help get ideas flowing. Again, Yuen was full of doubt, hesitant. He took a quick flip through the book.
Set forth. O presidente detalhou seu ponto de vista numa transmissão televisiva. Detalhou, set forth.
The president set forth his views in a television broadcast.
Ela explicou.
She set forth her views in the art of dancing.
Estabelecida por seu pai.
Tyrone Vaughn continues the great Austin blues tradition set forth by his father.
O conselho estabeleceu.
The board has set forth new guidelines for the safe use of opioids.
O governo estabeleceu.
The government set forth a variety of strategies to ensure economic development benefits locals.
Políticas estabelecidas pelo governo Obama.
Trump announced that he would be rescinding a set of policies set forth by the Obama administration.
Colombo partiu em viagem.
Columbus set forth with 3 small ships.
Colombo deu início à sua épica viagem.
It was during the reign of Queen Isabella that Christopher Columbus set forth on his epic voyage of discovery.
A expedição partiu.
The expedition set forth on the 1st of July. When humans set forth on the seas to explore new lands, they often bring with them unintended stowaways, rats.
Rush off. Desculpem-se, mas vou ter de sair correndo antes da reunião terminar.
I'm sorry, but I will have to rush off from this meeting before it's over.
Rush off, sair correndo.
Mary had to rush off before the party was over. It's too bad you have to rush off right after the movie. She took the butter knife from me and rushed off to show the cook. After the meeting, I tried to rush off before he could stop me, yet I was too slow.
Sair correndo. Enviar o seu pedido para você imediatamente.
I will rush your order off to you immediately. I need to rush off this package to Walter.
Enviaremos na hora.
As soon as your payment clears, we'll rush off your package to you. I'm sorry you left your book here. We'll rush it off to you in the mail. Tweak the design until it's just the way you want it, then we'll rush it off to production.